Wow, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business, Fox News, the New York Post. I'm here with my partner in crime, Bob Sloan, the granddaddy of data. This is a live show, so I guess we can't edit out all the curses and the libelous stuff that
only if they're creative, right? You know, if they're creative, we'll entertain them. But if they're not creative, we're going to.
I mean, like last week, I said that Elizabeth Warren was my safe word. Didn't I say that?
You did, but that's not a curse word, though.
But
in some circles,
I think it got edited out. Anyway, we're not going to do that today. We're going to. By the way, thank you for joining us. For people that are tuning in, really appreciate it. We will take your questions. Be nice, or else I'll block you. But in any event. You don't get the trolls that I get, Bob.
No, that's why I'm the straight man in this gig. You know exactly
for that. Before we get into Bob's actionable items, and they are always very actionable, and by the way, your record is astounding.
Thank you.
That's why S3 Data is the premier, in my view, data company in the world, and it has nothing to do with you and me doing this. Before we even knew each other, I was quoting S3 Data. So
on Fox Business,
yes,
and elsewhere,
and in the Post. So it's good stuff. Let's get to the mayoral's race real quick because I can't. This is captivating Wall Street, and you'll see in the Post either later tonight or early tomorrow morning a story that I did where I spoke with financial advisors. People, brokers, as we they call them financial advisors, but they're always known as brokers. And the ones I speak to deal with some heavy hitters, billion-dollar guys that are worth billions, CEOs, that type. And just, really rich people, I would say $100 million in net worth and up. They're getting calls left and right. I mean, there is a panic about Zohran Mamdani and what he could do to their finances. How much is millionaires tax? What other taxes? Is he going to destroy the quality of life here in New York by defunding the police, or at least maybe not defunding them, but transfer, putting a new brain into the police officer to be a social worker as opposed to a cop? Are we going to be seeing protests every day because this guy is wickedly associated with the Democratic Socialists of America, which is a radical organization?
What did you think of his acceptance speech?
Well, I mean, I think that's what scared people. I mean, instead of saying kumbaya, we're all in this together, he came out and just guns ripping against Trump. And I watched it on replay. Trust me, I fall asleep early, and I fell asleep last night. As soon as I heard he won, I was done. It was funny. I did get the tip that the Mike Bloomberg people, Mike Bloomberg, the former mayor, was supporting Cuomo.
Right.
His people started telling my sources that Mamdani had it, about an hour before he got it. So they saw some of the numbers. Here's an interesting insight into just this game of politics, which I'm glad I'm not in. We at least have rational measures of reality here.
Right.
So when I reported two things, about an hour before Jack Ciattarelli lost to Mickey Sherrill, the Republican lost to the Democrat in Jersey, I asked my source over there, who's like his right-hand man, Jack's right-hand man, how do you guys feel? And he was like, we think it's going to be a long night. We think this is going to be very close, down to the wire. Literally an hour later, he lost. It was a blowout.
Right.
And I reported it just like he told me, although I had all these trolls like, oh, you screwed that. I'm like, I was quoting somebody, dude.
Right.
But
what did you think of the?
But let me just say one other thing. But after I reported the thing about Bloomberg, people telling me that I got a call from someone very high up in the Cuomo organization, telling me that, how do you know this? This is irresponsible. You shouldn't put this out there. I said, first off, the polls are closed. It's not going to. This won't sway anybody. But number two, call me tomorrow and we'll discuss, job opportunities going forward. What you should be doing next. And this person laughed and hung up on me. And obviously an hour later, he lost. And so my point is, when you're in these campaigns, there's like a sort of delusion that goes on. Politics is literally a smoke and mirrors business. And part of Mamdani's appeal was this smoke and mirror, the smile, but behind the scenes, and there's sort of these weird promises are going to give you free everything. And then, buried in the fine print is, but we're going to tax all these really rich people who can leave the state if they want. tomorrow we're going to tax them, and they will leave tomorrow based on what I'm hearing from these FAs that I'm talking to who deal with their finances. I mean, it is sort of, it's so bizarre. And, and if he has to go through with a lot of what he wants, or else he's going to lose his base. There's no reason to vote for this guy because he's an imbecile and he's got literally no, I mean, listen, the guy studied Africana studies.
But he was smart enough to run a great campaign. He beat someone that's super politically connected. And so what do you think he meant?
But not a great candidate. Andrew Cuomo was not a great candidate.
Well, I didn't say he was a great candidate, but he comes from a dynasty and he's politically connected. And he knows the game and he knows the people.
Wounded like crazy. And the guy with the beret?
Well, we had him on and we knew that. But what did you think about turn the volume up? Why did he say that? Isn't that because President Trump likes to look at things without the volume?
Right. He's a leftist. I mean,
there's a shout out.
Catnip to a pure leftist is the word Trump. That's their safe word.
Right.
Trump. Right.
Right.
I mean, Trump is like the visage of Trump to any, leftist progressive is like holding a crucifix up to a vampire. Right. I mean, they start melting and going nuts. So my point is that's why he did it. And he really, so most of the people that I'm hearing about, these rich people that are calling, and, we're kind of in that circle. There's a lot of people that are saying, I'm out. I'm just looking for the place and the sort of entree point to leave. Others are saying, yeah, I'm going to stay because he's too stupid to get anything done. Hochul is a moderate and she won't. Remember, you need state buy-in to do a lot of this stuff, including raising New York City taxes. I would just say to them, be careful there because, Bob, I've been covering this state a long time, politics. I started out covering it. That was one of my first jobs.
Yeah.
At the bond buyer. I covered the state and the city from a financial standpoint, but it involved a lot of politics. And this state is moved in the legislature far to the left.
Yep.
Hochul is a weak governor. She's going to be primaried by a progressive, so she's going to move to the left. He might get a lot of what he wants.
We shall see.
Do we have? How are we going to do the questions? Are we going to take them later or do them now?
We can take them now. We can take some now.
Let's do this.
Later.
I'd rather get through your calls.
Yeah, let's do
and
that.
Then we'll open it up. Why don't you fire away here?
Yeah. So last week we said short Palantir. That turned out to be correct. Stock was down about 9%.
Stop bragging.
Yeah, well, we got some things wrong too. We always, we like to always point out when we're right and when we're wrong. You'll see that if you conclude and watch us. No, but that's the look. If you're right 57% of the time in markets, you're a genius, right?
Oh yeah.
Because the markets don't grade on a curve.
Who bats 500, right?
Yeah, no, markets don't grade on a curve. You're either right or you're wrong, right? So you either get an A or you get more or less like a C or an F. So, we said Bristol Myers go long. Bristol Myers, pharmaceutical company go long. That we had that wrong. And Colgate, we said buy that. That was flat. So overall, we were up about 1.5 points last week.
Okay,
which is still a great result. If you did that 52 times a year, you'd be very happy.
Right.
This week, Becton Dixon, which is a medical supply company, we were very bullish about that. They have earnings coming out tomorrow, pre-open. We have Monster Beverage Corp. We're calling that a bearish call tomorrow after the close. They announced earnings, and Microchip, also a bearish call tomorrow after the close. And one of the things, to follow up on your story about talking to these wealth advisors, New York real estate is a monster lobby in this town. It's an incredibly well-heeled, incredibly powerful. And basically, from my point of view, the election was really about affordability. They made that a core issue. Real estate is right in the center of that right now. Freezing rents is even worse idea than rent control. We know that.
I mean,
it's a crazy thing. But the short interest
okay.
We came prepared. What did short interest do for New York Center real estate stocks? What's happened to those things?
Now, is this commercial real estate you're talking about?
Yeah, like SL Green.
Okay, so let's
or the Empire State REIT.
You see, what are these sort of, and then we're going to get to your call. Just to make this clear for the viewers, one of the problems with Mamdani is that he is looking at commercial real estate as it's equal to residential. Right. We have an affordability problem in this city. Mainly, where it becomes a real issue is on rentals for middle class people. There isn't enough. And it's the reason why there isn't enough is because of the socialist rent control issues that we have. That and by the way, most apartments are rent stabilized. I have a rent stay. Everybody,
Right.
Unless it's real high end, you have a rent stabilized apartment. It's just the way it is. It's not your fault. You got it, and then there's if you stay in it for a while, your rent only goes up marginally. Only when I think if you stay in it, it only goes up a few percentage every year. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so that's the way it is. Now, part of this, what you want is the market dealing with that, right? But because of the rent regulations, you can't build that stuff. But what's happening now, because people are going to leave, my view, that commercial real estate is going to start tanking. And he looks at the commercial real estate people as a piggy bank for his socialism.
Well, we looked at two stocks. We looked at SL Green and we looked at the Empire State Building REIT. And if you look at the both the short interest, when the Working Family Party and AOC endorsed Mamdani,
right,
short interest picked up massively.
Really? That's fascinating.
In SL Green in June. And both stocks are been down, quite a bit. And they've more or less bottomed out. Today, we were looking at it very carefully. They started out down, they rallied, they kind of more or less, I think, ended up flat, at least, but before we got on the show, they were more or less flat for the day. So one of the things I think you have to look at is New York City development or New York City REIT stocks. Look at our short interest. It's going to tell you what people are thinking about the prospects of New York City real estate, bearish or bullish. And right now, you're seeing increase in short interest. You're seeing short sellers in the money. They'll probably press their bets.
So you don't think this short thing is over with real estate, right? You think we're in the beginning, or where?
It seems like we're in the beginning.
So that's what we're saying. So now's the time.
Yeah. So I think people are wargaming now, and I think his appointments to transition team, who he appoints.
Well, you saw who he appointed today.
That was a nice pass.
Right. So Lena Khan, right? Okay. We should point out that Lena Khan, before she became the head of the Biden FTC, was a very progressive academic.
Yep.
She wrote a famous paper that basically said they need to break up Amazon.
Yep.
The least Wall Street friendly of all. I'm not saying they have to be Wall Street friendly. We have more than just Wall Street people living in New York, but the least. I mean, she was against every merger. I mean, like you could merge like two glass companies that have no impact on pricing.
She said no to everything.
She said no to everything. And the by the way, her position paper was called, I believe, the Amazon Paradox. You checked me on that.
No, you got it right.
But I read it, and it was like you would think this is coming from the Karl Marx school over at Yale, and not or Columbia, wherever she went.
No, I think Yale was right.
Yale's right. I mean, it was really quite fascinating. But her getting in there, it gives you an idea of where he's thinking economically. She is a near socialist. He's not backing down from that stuff.
So one of the things that we looked at to prepare for this live show are gambling stocks, specifically Caesars, which is the symbol is CZR. And if you look at it, the stock was off 15%, and it's the most shorted name amongst the gaming stocks in the United States. And what's happening is fascinating. And this is where I think the state could be where Mamdani could actually be interesting, because there's a lot of talk about casinos coming to New York City and what to do. What's happened is that Caesars was empty in the fall because prediction markets took off so much,
right,
that people were betting football on Kalshi and Polymarket and not at Caesars, right? So you've had this very interesting phenomenon, which is Kalshi now, these prediction markets have taken off so much that they invaded DraftKings, which used to invade Caesars. And so you have this lineup where the states, like the Nevada Gaming Commission, cannot be happy that Kalshi is actually doing what they're doing. And so you could see some very interesting actions by states, because jobs are at risk. And don't forget, Nevada is a key state. It's definitely a swing state, right, for election purposes. That if it eats into Caesars and other gambling stocks like that, you could see state action against Kalshi and or Polymarkets.
What could the states do? That's kind of a federal jurisdiction. They say,
we're regulated.
So you can't download Kalshi in Nevada?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it seems like they're
it's basically saying, hey, you're the same as us. You should be regulated like we are. And so that's the
by
thing.
gaming commissions,
by a commission and or an equivalent regulator.
Well, there is,
and maybe and to be fair, maybe the CFTC is regulating Kalshi. I don't think they are, but you can see where this is going.
Yeah, I mean, they are a market to a certain extent. They should be regulated theoretically, I think. What I find interesting is that this short thing is going to build up in short interest is also going on in the aftermath of that gambling probe that involved the mafia and the NFL and the NBA, where there's all sorts of games were fixed, so bettors on Kalshi or DraftKings or wherever could have a leg up on competition, and there's going to be a point where people say, why is sports getting involved in this stuff too? You know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely. So short interest is 8% industry wide, 8% of the float. It's the highest it's ever been.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So next thing we want to turn to is we want to talk about pet stocks. Now this is
help me out here.
Yeah.
Pets.com.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Well, no, not pets.com. But
it's a blast.
If you look at like Fresh Pet, which is a pet food company.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the insurance companies, Petco Health and Wellness, Trupanion, and you look at some of the kind of all-purpose pet stores like Chewy and Bark.
By the way,
they've been beaten up.
I am getting emails from people watching. So
they are this is actually a fascinating thing. So as it turns out, and I think it's actually a real canary in the coal mine for inflation. So we've been watching the short interest of these stocks, and what's happened is that the amount of dog food and pet food consumed by dogs in particular has gone down a lot, and these stocks have gotten really hammered over the last.
Now, is that
6
because
months.
people are going to high-end dog food?
No, it's because they're buying smaller dogs.
Oh God.
Okay, because you've had a personification of animals in this country. You take them on an airplane with you.
Right. You can't. It's hard to take a big dog.
And well, hard to take a big dog, but it's also very expensive to feed them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so people are buying
feed them well, and feed
them well, right? And so this is what's happening: is that there's a really interesting social thing going on, where people are starting to curb necessities, because dogs are now a necessity. Pets are a necessity. Look at Curtis Lewa, for crying out loud. This guy has 32 cats. I mean,
17, but I get
whatever. 32, 17. Could be 32 in the next month. But anyway, but seriously, people are starting to crimp on things that are very important.
Now, is this inflation creeping in?
Sure, because big dogs eat more and they're expensive.
Before we open it up for questions, inflation is an issue. It's still at 3%, which is above the target.
Yep.
Prices have not come down. Remember, Trump got handed the Biden whatever price action and whatever price levels you had from Biden, where there was 9% inflation, even though the rate has come down. And take Mamdani out, because I think that's a freak show. Different reason. New York is sui generis, as they say, right?
Right.
The Mickey Sherrill winning. She's a moderate Democrat. Spamberger, I believe that's her name, in winning in
Virginia.
VA. Yep. By the way, a Democrat after a very successful Republican in Glenn Youngkin running Virginia.
Yeah.
Jack Ciattarelli ran a great campaign, and he got blown out. Particularly compared to last time, it was a nail biter. I think some of this is economic anxiety over the Trump economic agenda. It's just not doing it right now. There's still inflation. The wage gains aren't enough. You're getting some job losses now. And I'm telling you that, for me, Bob, the tariff was always an unforced error.
Yeah.
That if he just stuck with pro-growth policies, we would be in a much better, but he had
which is in front of the Supreme Court today.
He would be lucky if they said that the use of IEPA, which is that emergency powers, is unconstitutional. By the way, I'm not a lawyer, but it looks unconstitutional. Right. Do we have questions? Should we be opening this thing up? What does the voice of God say? Oh, here we go. The voice of God. Should Sliwa have dropped out in retrospect? Yes. Now, here's the thing. Sliwa will argue, and he is arguing, that, hey, I only got 7% of the vote. Wouldn't have mattered anyway, because Mamdani got, what, 50.4? Yeah. Cuomo got 40, roughly 40, and he got 7. Here's what the difference is. Sliwa literally was attacking Cuomo every day. It was like he was Mamdani's running mate almost. And people,
but that's what the Cuomo campaign kind of came out with at the end, right?
They were saying, they showed him in some video staying. I don't know if that was exactly it, but it did look like he was, looking to ditch Cuomo, not ditch Mamdani. So I think if you're worried about a socialist, he should have dropped out. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it was literally tag team. I mean, I used to watch those debates. I mean, the one thing that if you're behind, you want to do a debate to land a couple of knockout punches. And by the way, I'm not defending Andrew Cuomo, and particularly his last term was horrible. And I'm not talking about the nursing homes. That wasn't his fault. I'm not talking about the sex harassments that he was never charged with that. I'm talking about raising taxes, bail reform, do that. So I'm not defending him, but his instincts are moderate to right of center. I know that because I know the guy. And I think he learned, but he couldn't make the case during the debates because Sliwa was beating him up on top of Mamdani. So that's where I think he should have dropped. What else do we got here? Will people actually leave New York for Florida?
Yes. Answer question.
If they can, they will.
Next question. They will.
If they can, they will, right?
Yes, they will.
Yes. Let's go, Charlie. Is someone inviting me to Florida? Who's buying? Anyway,
so one other thing we want to cover, and then we'll get to your headlines, is we had Jim Chanos on this show on in May 22nd, actually, and he came up and he said, "I have a trade: go long Bitcoin and short MSTR and MicroStrategies." And that trade has actually worked out really, really, really well for him. So I think it's really fascinating when you look at the chart that's on the screen there. You can see right now,
well, there's a
short interest is exploding.
Huge correction
doing this trade.
I mean, huge correction in all crypto lately.
And but what's falling, the holding company, in essence, of the Bitcoin is falling faster than the actual Bitcoin itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And so that's why.
So MicroStrategies is falling faster than
Bitcoin. That is correct.
Now, has GME done anything?
You know what? As we talked about in the Roundhill ETF last week, GME is not even considered a meme stock anymore. They've all been replaced by quantum computing and/or AI stocks. That's what's considered a meme stock today.
But GME did buy a lot of Bitcoin. Well, it's not doing that. Listen, it's down. It's down 12% this month,
which would reflect
Bitcoin. The Bitcoin. It's down to $22 a share right
exactly. Now, the last thing, I'll just do one more, which is there's a really interesting play in lithium, which obviously is a rare earth.
Right.
Mineral.
And rare earths are in the news like crazy lately.
Yeah, and there are 3 stocks out there. There's Albemarle, which is out of Virginia. That's about a $10 billion market cap company. There's a Pilbara Minerals in Australia, which is also about a $10 billion, about $7 billion market cap company. And then there's Ganfeng Lithium in Hong Kong, which is about a $20 billion U.S. market cap company. And what's fascinating is that there's no contract, there's no commodity traded to buy lithium, yet it is the ingredient you need for EV batteries. So there's no market. There's no it's not like orange juice or corn or something like that where you can go to an exchange and actually buy a futures contract. So what's happening is that companies looking to lock in pricing are shorting this stock and these group of stocks around the world. So you have this conference with Trump and Xi have a conference, and basically we get a 1-year pass-go card to go and develop all these rare earth minerals.
That whole China tariff thing, since we're on tariffs, much ado. I mean, what a waste of time. We didn't get that much. They didn't give that much. and we're almost back to square one.
We are back to square one,
And,
pretty much.
And we just,
as far as we know, right? I mean, we're pretty close to
I don't know.
things.
We get
but
TikTok, maybe that's about it.
but that's big. I mean, look, TikTok and Mamdani are tied at the hip, and if we can actually have some influence over that algorithm, that's a good thing.
We won't be. That's the whole thing. I mean, I just think that this whole tariff thing was one huge waste of time. It was scattershot. They should have just focused on China, and they would have cut a better deal with Xi, because that's the real problem. The real problem, I hate to say it, is not Newfoundland or whatever.
Greenland,
Canada, right. Greenland, right? All right. So we got a few minutes left before I have to run. By the way, I will be on Kudlow and Company in a few minutes. Bank of America had its long-awaited investor meeting today. And I'll tell you,
I heard it wasn't great.
Yeah. I haven't had one in 14 years. You would think some huge thing. All you had to do was read what I wrote in the Post 2 days ago. And you know exactly. Brian Moynihan was forced to do this, from what I understand. They denied it, but from what I understand, he was forced because no one knew his strategy. His stock is obviously lagging.
Yeah. And
then he does this thing to his big reveal is we may take a little more risk. Because remember, we're not talking about like rolling the dice in, I don't know, wicked derivatives. We're talking about using your trading balance sheet after you do an IPO to support the stock and to help it find its level, which is called, supporting a client.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that, so they leave money on the table on so many different areas of the firm. So he said, and I told you he was going to say it, we take a little more risk. And guess what? The stock went down.
Yeah.
So like 2%. I mean, that is a weird company. He's a weird CEO. I mean, he's a very sort of uncomfortable guy in his skin in many ways. He is a pretty leftist. And he's very woke, right? I would say leftist. He's woke. And, he hasn't done this great job. I mean, the best you could say about him is that he kept them out of trouble.
Yeah.
But
that was his mandate all along, I think.
I don't know. I think your mandate is to return to share. I mean, Jamie Dimon except for like some weird stuff like the London whale. I mean, Jamie Dimon has essentially kept JP Morgan out of trouble.
I think he's made some incredibly smart investments.
I mean, Jane Fraser,
developed their talent.
You see what Jane Fraser's doing at Bank of America? I mean,
at Citigroup.
At Citigroup, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't get Wells had a huge scandal. Charlie Scharf is rebuilding the place. Go down the line. I mean, it's, there's a lot of potential at Bank of America. They have a huge balance sheet.
Huge. And
no one's saying go out there and, use your balance sheet to underwrite collateralized debt obligations again. I mean, or whatever. But you got to figure out a smart way to take risk because that's what this business is. By the way, we tell people, we don't tell people what to invest in, but we give you these sort of markers on how you might make money. You're going to take you're taking risk.
Well, we're showing you where the action is and where sentiment is. And
right.
And then
there's risk involved.
Right. And then there's catalysts all along the way. And we're trying to identify what those catalysts are.
But if you buy a house, there's risk involved. I mean,
everything's risk.
You walk across the street, right? Bingo.
Bingo.
So remember that, and I think Moynihan, listen, I don't run a big bank. I'm just a simple country
reporter.
And I just observe this. And I talk to smart people who tell me things, and then I make my own decision and I come to a conclusion, but that's what they're telling me.
You want to preview what you're going to say on Kudlow?
We're going to talk about Mamdani.
I would imagine so. Well, he was an advisor to Sliwa, so he's going to have a.
Was he an advisor?
I think so.
He spoke with him. I don't know if he was an advisor.
Well, maybe I think Sliwa on the show said he was an advisor. So maybe that meant he talked to him.
Listen, I guess you could call me an advisor because I told him not to wear his hat when he went to a couple of these meetings with people, Wall Street types, and he took off his hat. So I'm an advisor to Sliwa.
So one thing about Sliwa.
By the way, I love Curtis. And we do need to wrap this up. But he disappointed me here. Anyway, Go ahead.
I was going to say, he might be the big winner, though. He might be the big loser today. But who else is stepping into the shoes in 4 years to be in opposition? He got his name out there. He got his brand out there. And if crime increases at all in the way that people think it will, because it does seem that these policies, it's not that hard to actually see how they'll be result in a worse crime rate, particularly if you open up Rikers Island. Well, then there's more demand for the guardian angels. That's very cynical.
I think it's
very cynical.
I think he burned. I think he burned a lot of bridges
bridges,
staying in this race and being the sort of being like just attacking Cuomo and not Mamdani. And if Mamdani really lives up to what he said he's going to do, it's not going to be good. But maybe he doesn't care. He's got his wife. He's got a small apartment, and he's got 10 cats to keep him happy.
And then, like I said, people love their pets.
People love their cats. Anyway, that's it for another. Not another.
This was the first
live edition of Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox and the Post, signing off with my partner, Bob Sloan.